You did it. You hit play. That means you were excited to go on this journey, another episode of Waterproof Records with Jacob Givens, another guest episode, and I am so excited to welcome onto the show today Tim Dow. If you're not familiar with Tim Dow, he's an incredible drummer who's from Kansas City, Missouri, came up with the band Shiner, recorded on their first two albums, and also was in Ken Andrews' post-failure band, Year of the Rabbit. He's played with a lot of other artists like Pete Yorn and many more, but I've been lucky enough to hang out with Tim a couple times in person, and I'm so excited to welcome on the show today. So let's talk to Tim Dow. Let's go.
Things are gonna change. I can feel it.
If this gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna...
Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records with Jacob Givens.
And there it is. And there it is, the theme song. Check. Next on the list, we got to say DistroKid. You know I'm going to tell you about it. DistroKid is amazing. And with my link that you click on, you can get 30% off your first year of uploading your music. So distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. If you use that link, 30% off. DistroKid is the way that you're going to get your amazing tunes, that song, that pop ballad that you recorded on your computer, in your bathroom that has that amazing reverberation. You're going to be able to put it on every streaming platform possible. Now everybody can hear what an incredible artist you are by using DistroKid, so you should definitely go and use that link. But now, it's time. It's time. You've waited long enough. I had the intro music. I had the DistroKid. I did the beginning. I mean, all the things. There's probably been ads that you've had to sit through as well. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get to the interview. Welcome to Waterproof Records, Tim Dow.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me, man. It's so cool to see you again. It's been a little bit since we've hung out.
Was it Royal Blood? I think that was the last time I maybe saw you. Probably?
I think so. I think it was Royal Blood. We had plans to see a couple shows, but whether it was my schedule or your schedule, that we just didn't sync it up. But you were really the one who kind of introduced me to the wonder and magic that is Royal Blood. That was a fantastic show.
Oh man, that was they're like arena rock.
Yeah.
In Europe, but
yeah,
probably not so much here.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were amazing.
So much sound out of two people. So much sound.
I think the reason they're so great as an arena rock type band as well is because it is so simple. You know,
Yeah.
Not a lot of things going on.
No.
The more stuff you put in there and the less space there is, then it,
Right.
especially in an arena like or with a large crowd, you know, sometimes.
I agree. It's just the heaviness of his bass, the way that he plays it like a guitar, tons of pedals, tons of distortion and things on that, and just really massive drums. And it's so simple and clean that you can really make it sound super loud, but it's not busy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I had heard a song or two, you know, kind of randomly roll through a playlist, thought it was cool, didn't pay that much attention, and then when you invited me, I was excited to go. And the only other thing I really knew about Royal Blood going into that was I think they pissed off a bunch of English folk at a concert once, got super pissy with them. And
That was this past year, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was at some festival,
Yeah.
and people were not as
Jazzed.
enthusiastic as they expected. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Rock and roll, mate. Rock and roll. You know,
Right.
You get up there, you want them to just get so excited for your band, mate. Yes.
God. Don't even get me started on the Oasis thing.
I feel kind of bad because are you an Oasis fan?
I love Oasis.
Okay.
I love the Gallagher brothers as far as like, you know, great source of comedy, great
Yes.
music as well.
Yes.
But Alan Epley, you know,
Yes, from Shiner. Mm-hmm.
he has his tribute band Broasis.
Oh, that's so good.
And I texted him immediately when I found out about the reunion. I was like, dude, you better get ready for your phone to ring off the hook, because I guarantee they're not going to play a single fucking show.
That was my joke too. My joke that I put on Threads, because I still have to get these things out of my head, and I don't do Twitter anymore really. But my joke was, you know, when you're going to buy the ticket and it says, "Would you like to protect this ticket?"
Absolutely.
I was like, you better protect that ticket, because I'm gonna guess maybe one or two shows in there's gonna be a fight.
Yeah, I think there's probably. I'd love to see if there's some Vegas odds where you can be like,
Yes.
you know, over under
Oh,
5, 6 shows played.
Tim, why don't we start that up? Why don't we start up the 90s reunion tour pool in Vegas? We'll start to rake it in on our guesses.
There you go.
Yeah, but Oasis is one of those bands that I so often talk about the bands that I love in my content and the stuff that I make. Oasis was one that I didn't get into. I liked their singles, but I didn't get into them. I liked Blur, but I was really into Pulp at the time. It's not that I really participated in the whole war between those two bands or whatever that was going on, but their attitude back in the 90s really bothered me. And although I do know it's entertaining, I know. Well, and it's so funny because, look, I'm a Smashing Pumpkins fan, and I should talk about somebody with an attitude, right? It's like, a lot of bands back then had their attitudes, but those guys would always be in the MTV news cycle where it'd be like, all the stuff that would get to us in the States, like they claimed to be better than the Beatles, which I'm sure was just like a misconstrued, like an out of context line in an interview, but I don't know. Or they just said it.
It's actually something that I've thought about a lot in recent years. There's a few bands where the alternative scene was very politicized. Like, you couldn't like this band, but you could like this band. But if you like this band, you shouldn't like this band. And da 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 da.
Totally.
And and I definitely, being in bands in the 90s, sometimes subscribe to that. Like, oh yeah, those guys suck, or that band's not cool at all. But then it comes around, and you're like, they're actually pretty good. I don't know, like Oasis. I liked Oasis back then. And going back, I think their music really stands the test of time. But I absolutely could see, like, all of the excess stuff around it, people just being like, nah.
Yeah.
I'll pass.
And that is something that, I'm probably still exists in music to this day with artists about who's cool to like and who's uncool to like. But there was a lot of pressure back then if you were into any kind of underground or indie bands that were lesser known. It became this big flex, to know the bands that people didn't talk about, and then when somebody would talk about somebody who was getting a lot of airplay on MTV or the radio, it would be like, whatever, man. Like it was
the first demo that they put out, but after that they kind of sucked.
Totally. I had so much pressure back then from groups of friends where I would like a band, and then all of a sudden that band would fall out of fashion with the circle, and you'd still have to like listen to the album in private, just be like, I still like it.
I remember distinctly, my first job out of high school in 1988. I'm old. Yeah. I worked in a record store, and one of the advanced cassettes or tapes or whatever we got back in the day, we got that Faith No More, The Real Thing album.
Right.
But I had it for about a year and a half before it ever even saw the light of day.
Amazing.
So all my friends and I, we were like, this album's great. And then it blew way up.
Yes.
And we were all like, they suck, but it was one of those things where, it was great until it got shoved down our throats nonstop. Yeah. And then we were like, what else you got?
And that was so much the fault of the rotations and cycles of MTV and feeding it to us so heavily over and over, overplaying something. You'd be excited about this band, and then it was just like, here it is over and over and over again. And so it would make you tired of it very quickly.
The general laziness of promotional departments.
Yes.
Where it's like, this is doing okay. Let's just put everything into that.
Yeah.
That's actually what happened somewhat. Not like Year of the Rabbit was going to blow, break every record and be
but
the
it's excellent music.
They the president of I like to call him Neglectra, but it was Electra.
Yeah. Good like that.
But she signed Missy Elliott. She really didn't have knowledge about like what rock things were going on, and at that time Jet was doing really well.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's just go with the hot hand, and these guys can, fend for themselves.
For sure.
But yeah, that's general,
That's how it goes.
Is with record labels, and that was definitely a minus.
Well, before we get into Year of the Rabbit and all the bands and all the amazing musicians and groups and people you've played with and albums you've put out, you mentioned, graduating high school in 1988 or out of high school. Were you class of 88? Was that your?
I graduated in 88. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we're about a decade apart. I'm class of 97. And I thought that was such an interesting thing when you were telling me, when I was asking you about your waterproof records. This is a really clear like indication that the decade separation of these albums and where they hit you. And before we get into those, because I was looking at the date and I was like looking at like the most influential time in my life. And it was like, it's like that same block of time, but 10 years, later. But you grew up in Kansas City, right? That's hometown.
Yeah.
And that's where you're born and raised.
Yeah, I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. I moved here in 99, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It was great. I grew up in the Midwest, home of classic rock radio. Once I get to my waterproof records, you'll probably be like, oh, makes sense.
Yes.
It's a great place. It was a great place to play in bands.
Yeah.
When I moved to Los Angeles, that was one of the biggest things. It's not easy to play in bands here.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
Kansas City, it's like your rent is, you can
Yeah.
practice in your house,
Yeah.
all of those things are impossible in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and find each other easily in Kansas, like find the circles, the groups, the friends, the music people that, it's just we're so sprawled out here, whereas you could get much more together on that. But did you have a musical household? Did your parents play a lot of radio, a lot of records? Was there always music in the house?
Absolutely. So my mom, I actually made a great mom rock Spotify playlist that's grown and grown and grown. Now it's very long. Basically,
Nice.
that's my mom's entire record collection, which when I started to grow my record collection and she, moved on and whatever with, CDs and stuff, she's like, you can have my records. And my mom listened to her records. So if you pull out those records, it's like, nah, I don't want that one.
Totally. Like a coaster, like a giant coaster that's just been like thrown around, scratches. I know.
I have a few of her records. Like her Stevie Wonder collection is really near and dear to my heart. So, but those records, they got some wear and tear on them for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of music in the household growing up. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a brother. My brother is 18 months older than me.
So was he a good source of kind of feeding you what he was into, or were you guys kind of walking the same parallel line musically growing up?
I would say until, well, I'll go
Your
into
waterproof
it.
records will clear up that whole journey.
I'll kind of go into it because there was kind of a, light bulb moment. I'm sure most people had that like cool cousin or, the guy who smoked weed and rode a skateboard and, in the late 70s, early 80s, that was extremely cool in the Midwest
cool
to wear OP shorts and, have a skateboard and smoke weed and have a big Judas Priest poster on your wall. All that stuff was, that was for me almost like Dazed and Confused. Like if you're just like, here, just get into that movie.
Yeah.
But no, I had this cousin who was very into that stuff, and I thought he was the coolest thing ever, and he was kind of the first thing where I was like, oh, I've heard that song on the radio, or oh, I've heard that. Oh, this is why I like this one and that, and so on and so forth. So my brother was more so like he would just listen to whatever, and I think to this day he does.
Whatever's on the radio, just kind of like it's fine. Yeah.
And pretty good taste, considering, it wasn't like he was just like all Creed all day. Sorry, Creed.
Sorry, Creed. Oh man, I don't know. No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, look, that's a.
I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
In recent years, back to that thing of like, this is cool and that's not, and giving things a chance. Yeah. There is a Creed song. I don't even want to go too deep into it because I don't want to be judged harshly forever.
Oh, I'm going to judge you forever on this.
There's a Creed song that I heard like maybe a year ago, and I was like, "Is that song good?" And then so I listened to it, and I was like, I think that song might be good,
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, that's the funny thing is I get asked, in my comments on my videos, people are like, when are you going to do a Creed video? And it's not that I haven't heard a Creed song on the radio or jammed out to one time or another been like, yeah, hey, this kind of goes. But I'm not going to make a video about something that I only casually like one toe in the water on. You know what I mean? It's like you only make a video about a band that you're crazy about, that you're like, I love this band. So, and I'm not crazy about Creed.
Right. Well, that's your loss, buddy. I won't show you the huge Creed back piece I got.
For those who are only listening, behind
arms
Tim,
wide open.
Yeah, arms wide open. Behind Tim.
It's just Scott Stapp in like a crucifix on my back.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see that tat. And for those who are only listening, behind Tim is a giant collection of vinyl records in a cabinet. And what I like to believe is that is every single album there is Creed, including like bootlegs, EPs. It's just not you are the most diehard Creed fan in the world.
I mean, I like some other stuff, but they're my shit.
But it's Tim Creed Dow. But I was going to say, so to your waterproof records, let's jump right in. Go ahead and whenever I ask somebody to be on the show and ask them for one, it's always the challenge to say one because there are so many albums that are influential. And I let Tim go with a 3. So he's going to do a 1, 2, 3 punch here. So.
Okay, well, let me preface it by saying that, so it kind of goes back to my cousin. Yeah. And actually, I think he had just gotten Moving Pictures by Rush.
Okay.
And I remember distinctly listening to that at his place and him being like, oh, check out this drummer, check out this, and being blown away. And that created this catalyst for me to go to the record store or cassette store, because literally I had nothing when I was a kid. So I had one of those, I don't know if you've ever seen those cassette players that it's like a speaker here and then the buttons are on this end. And it's just, so that's what I had, you know.
Very limited equipment back then when you're a young boy. It's not like somebody gave you this amazing turntable. Go buy the best high-end vinyl.
I wasn't stereo for a long time.
Right.
So I went in and I asked them and they're like, oh, we didn't have that one. So what happened was I bought 3 cassettes the first time I bought any music for myself.
Even better, these are not only the 3 waterproof records, these are 3 cassettes that you bought.
Oh, yeah. These are the first 3 things I ever bought to own myself with my own money. But now I have them on vinyl.
Yes.
And I don't have the cassettes.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not as common to listen to tapes.
First and foremost, we got a little April Wine, Canadian rock.
Yeah. He's holding up a vinyl of April Wine, The Nature of the Beast, like red light, alive, looks like a live photo of the guitarist just shredding.
The big hit on this one, I believe, was Sign of the Gypsy Queen or Wanna Rock, but Just Between You and Me, the ballad on here. To this day, I think it's got like one of my favorite guitar solos ever. That one is not so some bands were all killer, no filler. April Wine, I would not throw into that category. They have albums that have songs that are phenomenal, and then maybe the next song is just the worst song you ever heard. Maybe not the worst, but they're not as consistent. This one, on the other hand, AC/DC, Back in Black.
Yes.
I would argue there's very few albums that are all killer, no filler.
Yeah.
Like to this day.
Yes.
Absolutely.
AC/DC, Back in Black. I'm sure everybody who's listening knows AC/DC and knows at least 2 of the songs off that album, which are, quite possibly the biggest AC/DC songs in the world.
Yes. But it's funny, actually, Ken Wagner, who owned Hit It Recordings, who released a Shiner record, a couple 7 inches, and the Molly Maguire record. I actually had him convinced to put out a tribute record to this record.
Really?
Called Back in Black. It would have been, I think, at that time, maybe the 20-year anniversary.
Right.
And we kind of started to put it together and then, realized it wasn't
going to happen.
It was going to be really difficult, but but Shiner was going to do Shake a Leg, which I love.
Yes. Great song.
Phenomenal tune. And then the final one,
Rush, Permanent Waves.
Yes. So I went in looking for Moving Pictures, but they're like, get this one.
Take this one
have-
instead. It just came
Yeah.
out. It's a hit.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, actually, Moving Pictures this was right before Moving Pictures, but
Okay. Gotcha.
um, obviously I could go on and on for about that record forever, and Rush in general. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say Rush is the reason I started playing drums. It's the
Yes.
reason I started listening to what different instruments were doing, especially since it's three people and you're like, where are all these sounds coming from?
Yeah.
So
Talk about the opposite of Royal Blood, as in three musicians that are making it about as busy and complex as you can get. And I always, when I have a drummer on the show or I ever meet a drummer, I'm expecting the Rush nod. It's just almost impossible. It's almost a rule amongst the drumming community that there's going to be like and Rush, of course. You know?
here's what I would liken it to is, whenever you start doing anything new, if you take up a hobby, like say you decide you want to play golf,
Right.
you're probably going to look at like Tiger Woods or,
Right.
the people who are the very
best
at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to realize things like, oh, well, that guy is kind of good at, shaping his irons and doing this. And, but that was what I realized with becoming a musician and then learning about music. The things that are obvious right off the bat are the things that draw you in.
Right.
And then as you get older, like it took me forever to have the patience for the Beatles, but now I love them.
Right.
But back then I was like, yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, they're okay. Ringo's just kind of this, but then as you grow, you see how it all works together and it becomes clear.
I mean, they're not really shredding that much.
No. More
Can you
fills,
imagine?
Ringo. Yeah. No. But I was gonna say, when you listed these three, it's so funny that you earlier referenced Dazed and Confused, because I was like, talk about the most Dazed and Confused trifecta record collection ever. I wanted to put on a jean jacket, pop my collar, smoke a cig, hang out of the high school. I mean, that is some serious, just classic vibes that I got from those three choices, which are excellent. But I wasn't familiar with April Wine. I've got to confess to you, Canadian band. When I went through that album and I listened to it start to finish, I was like, I kind of recognize, like maybe I heard this somewhere playing on a radio in a bar somewhere, or somebody doing like a bad karaoke version of it or something. And I'm going through and I get down and reading up on the album, and this is my dorky confession, which is I watched this cheesy CW show called Supernatural.
Oh yeah.
And I was
guys, right?
Yeah, the two brothers who kill demons and monsters and stuff like that. Hey, people will judge Tim for his Creed love. Well, people are going to judge me for my Supernatural love. But
Judge all you want. It's just a couple fricks here, so whatever you want to think.
Yes, exactly. But what I was going to say. So I'm going through, and Bad Boys off of that album was like the season 10 opener number off of April Wine's album, that song. And I was like, oh, that's where I've heard these guys before. So that was my only
What
introduction.
song was it?
Bad Boys?
I don't think I know it.
Hold on. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Hold on.
Maybe.
I'm going to make myself look bad here. Hold on. Let's see. April Wine.
Well, while you're looking it up, I'll tell you a funny story. So
Okay.
just like Dazed and Confused, I spent a very large part of my early teens riding around in the back of a GTO
Yeah.
with our, like my buddy Jason and I, excuse me, Molly McGuire and millions of other bands, but
Yeah.
he and I have been friends since 7th grade. But we had this friend, Jeff Rowe, who had a kick-ass GTO, and we just ride around town, chewing Skull and listening to Boston or whatever the hell was on the radio.
Yes, I love it.
It was a lot of my early teen years.
I love it. Well, this song is the 10th song on the album, so it would have been on your side 2. Here, I'm going to play a second. I'm going to see if you recognize it. If will let me do this, if play it out loud.
Oh yeah, okay.
So you recognize that one?
I don't. But what I will say is, like I was saying about April Wine,
Yeah. Not a album that you put on and were like start to finish loving every song on it, right? So that's what you're saying.
Yeah, it was definitely, they were definitely one of the bands. Well, if I even just took the when I was like, okay, I got my 3 first cassettes I'm ever going to listen to, and like, I would have to say side 2 of Nature of the Beast, I might have skipped it. Just
tuned
fast
out.
forward, start side 1 again.
That's amazing.
Not that it's bad.
No. And you bring up a point that happened during our generation of physical media, which is kind of tape or album fatigue, which is you go through the side A of something, and then the idea of like you move on to something else, or something interrupts your listening, right? So you pop in the cassette in your Walkman, you pop it in your player, you get through side 1, and then you got to go to school, or you're leaving. And then the next time you pop in the tape, you started on side 1 again, and then you don't get to side 2. And then when you get to side 2, you listen to it half the amount of times you listen to side 1. So you're falling in love with the first 5 songs of this album, but you're never really spending the time. And I had so many dubbed tapes of like, even Master of Puppets by Metallica, which is a killer album. I would spend so much time on the first half of the album, because every time I would put it in, it would be the side 1. And then I would, you got this long ass instrumental one on the second side. So it's like I just wouldn't spend as much time with it. And that's something that I don't think people experience today. When you have physical media, you're kind of beholden to how long is it going to take me to get through this piece of media that I have to rotate,
As far as any media, whether it's TV or music or whatever, I think that's the biggest difference. Nobody listens to or watches anything that they're not interested in.
Yes.
But it's also the flip side of that is it used to be like, oh, dude, have you heard that new Swerve Driver record? Oh, it's phenomenal. Oh, I'm going to go check it out because, I trust your opinion.
Right.
Now people will text you be like, have you watched this? Are you going to watch this? Did you do this? And you're like, I probably won't watch that.
Yeah, totally. That, especially with shows, right? Somebody will say,
for sure.
Have you checked out such and such series? And you're like, nah, and I probably won't. There's too much to watch right now. There's just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
anything that cuts into my fantasy football time, I'm just got a lot of research to do.
Yeah. Somehow I feel like you're pulling my leg on that one.
No, I'm dead serious.
Really? Are you
I love football.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I'm just a nerd in general. I'm always
Yeah.
looking for something that I can just, put all my energy into that will give me nothing back.
Yes. Well, that's not true. You put all of your energy in drumming, and you're a fantastic drummer. And let's talk about Shiner. Let's talk about, being in Kansas City and starting these bands and starting out Season to Risk and getting in Shiner and those first 2 albums, Splay and Lula Divinia. Those are the albums with Shiner that you played on before leaving the band. But as you've told me before, you're all still buds. Everybody gets along in the Shiner world. You guys are all friends. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't all, unicorns and, rainbows when I quit.
Yeah.
Understandably, but they understood why I left, and I respected why they were upset that I left.
Yeah.
But it was kind of at that point when I quit the band, I was, drinking a lot in Kansas City and just messing around. And then, I met my ex-wife, who I wasn't married to yet then, but she lived in Los Angeles, and it was a long distance relationship. And long story short, I just moved here. It was kind of, as post Lula Divinia, we had written most of the songs for Starless, or what would become Starless, before that, but then I moved away. And but yeah, it was Kansas City. It was really easy to be in bands, but it was also really easy to just jump from band to band.
Sure.
Sometimes for good, sometimes not for good, but I wouldn't change it. Sure. I think my first band was just me and my friend Jason, trying to play stuff, trying to learn stuff, whatever in my mom's basement.
Yeah, tackling those April Wine and those Rush songs, and
Then we were to like punk rock. We were like, oh, we could do this.
oh yeah. That's all of our feelings back then, right? You had to find the band that was doing the power chords and the fast fun stuff.
The attitude of punk rock in general is, on one hand, it's, musically, it's very open to anyone because
Accessible. Yeah,
it doesn't take a virtuoso to play most of it.
right.
But then, as far as I thought that was the coolest thing about the punk community back then was it wasn't about like, are you a jock or this? All of that stuff, all the high school clique stuff, I found, just kind of disappeared. There's still, elements of like, I'm more punk than you or whatever it is.
Of course.
There's always going to be something, but yeah, that's kind of how we got into like the punk thing. And then I remember being at a party, I was like a metalhead, and then I got into punk and was at some party and somebody was playing Ride the Lightning by Metallica.
Okay.
And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is like the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And then it blew my mind. And then, I rushed out to buy Metallica and Slayer and all that stuff.
Yes, absolutely. So Shiner is coming together in the early 90s. That's when you guys form, right? It's like 92, 93, getting together.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And was it very clear when you guys formed that what you wanted from the sounds, what you're listening to at the time? And I mean, obviously when a band comes together, everybody's bringing their unique influences and styles, but was it really easy to be like, yeah, this feels right? Or did it take some time to find it?
It was really, for me, I actually quit Season Risk to start playing with Alan because I had seen his band, which was Orchid, before it was Shiner. It was the same two guys with a different drummer. And I just thought it was great. And, I think we hit it off and started talking. And it kind of was a little more specifically, I think there was like some sort of like Slint influence or some sort of
I can feel that.
Bitch Magnet, who I love Bitch Magnet. Just some of those kind of post rock or indie, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those influences were more heavily apparent in what Alan was doing than with Season Risk at that time. But also with Season Risk, and this is a recurring theme in my music career, is like once my band started to see a little bit of success, I was like, I'm out.
Classic.
That's a conversation to have with whoever, my therapist or whatever. But
well, that's what I am here. This is a very safe place, Tim. Let's talk about it.
Why do I leave everything? Why can't I?
Right when it gets good, I leave. I need to have Waterproof Records tissue boxes that I send to my guests, and so they can pull it up and it's branded. Anyway. Go.
But yeah, so I left Season Risk to start playing with Shiner, and then I think it came together pretty quickly as far as like we knew what we liked, and I feel like it came a little bit easier than prior projects that I had been involved in.
Right.
It was at least more down the direction where I felt like I wanted to go.
Right.
Which was, look at me. Look at all these drum fills I'm doing.
Yeah, but I gotta say, hey, they're so fucking good, dude. Like Splay, I don't even know how to describe it, but there's bands that you're introduced to in that era, and I was introduced to Shiner from my college roommate who was also a drummer, very talented drummer, and he would show me bands, and whenever I'd show them to my brother, as soon as like the drum started, he would look at me and he'd go, "Did Jarrett show you this band?" Because there was something about it that is very drum. There's like a drum centricness to it where you can tell that there's an intricacy and a style to the drummer that's really standing out apart from these other kind of droning like indie alternative bands at the time. I would say Sunny Day is like that too. You hear the drums, you immediately are like, okay, something special is happening there. And did you know that about Shiner, that this was going to be kind of a drum forward album?
It was
Splay.
never like intended in that direction, I'm sure, so we wound up hooking up with Jawbox after that record. We played a show with them, really hit it off. I was always a huge Government Issue and Jawbox fan, so
Sure.
it was a no-brainer that they were super cool, and then they wanted to put out our record later. But I became really good friends with Zach Barocas. He's a huge influence on me as a drummer as well. But he and I have talked about this. We call ourselves riff drummers.
Gotcha.
And that, certain songs, the drum beat kind of is the song, or it's very specific to that song. It's not something you'd hear in other songs per se. He takes it to a whole other level.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I'm just blown away sometimes where I'm like, that's crazy what you're playing,
Right,
and then I got the pleasure of like touring with them and seeing him play them every night. And it was just, one of the greatest experiences of my life. But yeah, it wasn't like we were writing drum centric music per se, but Alan and I definitely, kind of gelled on what we liked. And, he would come up with riffs, and then I would be like, come up with something that pleased me.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, is it too much? Is it not too much? Or, and most of the times it was too much, but it still stayed.
Good for you.
So anybody watching this, I don't know if you're talk about, links or anything like that, but
yeah,
Shiner did just reissue their entire back catalog on vinyl.
Absolutely.
Spartan Records. So with both of those, when Paul, the bass player, went and remixed and remastered a lot of that stuff, to me, just like, oh, what do you think? Just making sure, quality check and all that. But with Splay, that was kind of one of the funniest things is when I got it, I was like, how many frickin' drum fills have I played in this song alone, let alone like on this album? So
it's awesome though. It's so uniquely, but it's what it makes you think this is Splay, this is Shiner. You know what I mean? It's like,
sure.
it stands out.
And then, so the karma years later was, I love Mastodon, but I remember first time I heard Mastodon, I was like, man, I wish that drummer would just like chill just a little bit. Like, oh, wait.
Oh, right. I used to do the same thing. That's that's so funny.
Apparently they should have just had me start singing, and that would have chilled me out.
Yeah.
This what happened to Braun.
Yeah.
I cannot do like these crazy drum fills and sing at the same time.
Yeah, so. Totally. But both Splay and I'd highly encourage my audience, who are not as familiar with your catalog of music and Shiner, to definitely go check out those albums, Splay and Lula Divinia, and then on. Shiner continues on to make great albums, and they released something as recent as 2020. Great band, and I'm glad you still keep in touch with them, and that if it wasn't all unicorns back then, at least now things seem like you guys are good buds.
Everything's all unicorns now.
All unicorns all the time.
Everywhere. Yeah. Before I forget, I do have, in case anybody ever wants to check out, or if any of your watchers, listeners, whatever, want to check out the recorded stuff that I've done, I did make a playlist on Spotify, which I'll send to you.
Yeah, I'll link it in the video.
But it's basically anything that I've played on.
That's cool.
Yeah, different bands, and like a couple, like I played on a couple Pete Yorn singles, just weird stuff,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But it's a playlist of all my dumbness.
No, I love it. I think that's a good way for them to kind of hear your style and your sound. And I know there will be a lot of people who are listening, aspiring musicians, fellow drummers that want to check out the things that they didn't know that you necessarily played on. But speaking of the other projects, after your time with Shiner is done, this is the time where you start working with Failure's Ken Andrews, and the first project that he brings you on is On.
I'm going to take you back a little bit because you might not be privy to this knowledge, but I actually auditioned for Failure when I lived in Kansas City. Before Fantastic Planet.
Oh, wow.
Ken Wagner, the guy I mentioned earlier, who did Hit It Recordings, he also managed Failure early in their career. So he was friendly with those guys. That's actually how I found out about them, because he turned my friend Jason onto them, who was like, this band's amazing. And then Jason played him for me, and then found out later, he's like, hey, these guys are looking for a drummer, blah, blah, blah. Flew out here to Los Angeles, auditioned for him, and I'll leave it at that because,
Okay.
the rest of it is whatever. But I chose to stay in Shiner at the time. I was also super chicken to move out of Kansas City at
Where
that
you
time.
were in your life at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I knew Ken from that. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I just touched base with him, said, hey man, how you doing? Like,
Yeah.
do you have anything going on? Like, or on. But that's how that came about.
Yeah.
When I first moved here, I already knew Ken and reached out to him, and then we did On, which was kind of like his solo.
Yeah. He recorded it. He recorded it kind of independently on his own, and then assembled a team, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like kind of said like assembling a band once he recorded those initial songs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think most of it, I mean, I think it's all loops on there anyway. I don't think there are any live musical things, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Did that. That was on Epic. Once again, major label thing where probably didn't get enough attention to carry on. And then my thing with Ken, from the time I started playing with him was like, you should just do another rock band because, people just want to hear Failure for the most part. I felt at that time. And so that's how Year of the Rabbit came about. We were just like, what would it sound like if you started a rock band now? And then, so it was just he and I at the time. And then we got my buddy Jeff Garber from Castor and National Skyline. And he came, and that was a big piece to start kind of, okay, now we can start writing songs. And then our friend Saul played bass. And that was Year of the Rabbit.
Yeah. That was a great project. Great album. You had an EP, full studio album. And then did you guys just decide like that was all it needed to be? Or was it other projects came up that caused that band to not continue much longer after that?
I think there were a combination of things. We weren't really getting pushed by the label.
True. Yeah.
There were some things in the band where we were like, nobody was like super excited, like, oh, let's just go write the next record. It was, so some of us were relieved when we got dropped.
Okay.
We're like, okay, on to the next thing.
The next thing.
Yeah. Then, I don't know if you've ever heard this. This is on that playlist I created. But we did another band with just Jeff and Saul and I called the Joy Circuit.
I wasn't familiar with that.
Yeah, which I actually really, really liked. It's actually one of my favorite things that I ever played on. It was very like early U2 / Police / I don't know.
Yeah.
Interpol influenced maybe. But that was what we did directly after. And then after that, we kind of were just like, I think we all were just like, I think we just need a break from like the band world. But
yeah.
But
Well,
I think you dig the Joy Circuit stuff.
if there was a song that I was to play a quick excerpt here on the pod, what would be a good taste of the Joy Circuit?
Oh, I don't even know the names of any of the songs.
You're just like, I'm the guy behind the drum kit.
Well, there's only 4 songs on the EP.
Gotcha.
Let me see if it's
because this would be, like, hey, I want to hear it, but I also want everybody who listens to Waterproof Records to check out the Joy Circuit since it's not getting it's something Tim's proud of, man. We got to spread the word.
Right?
For that Joy Circuit reunion, you guys could open for Oasis.
Broasis.
Broasis. That is still such a great cover band name. I love it so much.
I don't know. I don't know if it's Joy Circuit was on Spotify. I don't know if it is anymore. But,
all right. Well, I'm going to ask you offline to send it to me, and then I'll find a way to put some piece of music in here that shows people the sound of the Joy Circuit. I can only do that on the audio version. The YouTube version always gets flagged for copyright and whatnot. But on the Spotify and the streaming versions, I can get away with it.
All right. Yeah, I'll try and send you what I can, or see if I can find it anywhere.
Even a clip. It'd just be cool to share it with everybody. But
Yeah.
So since that time, obviously you have a playlist full of things you're playing on. Do you still get to play drums as often as you'd like, or is it's not as it's fantasy football all day every day now? It's just
it's not fantasy football. Like,
I'm kidding.
It wasn't like no more music. I can only do one thing. This is where my heart is.
Yeah.
But no, that's the thing about living in Los Angeles is if you're a drummer, it's expensive. It's an expensive hobby until you're making money, because you have to have your drums set up somewhere probably. Right. I practice like rudiments and stuff like that, but I would not call that playing drums.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's if I feel like, being creative, I'll just, try and stumble my way around my acoustic guitar. But for the most part, no, not really.
Yeah. When did you start playing drums? How old were you?
However old you are in 6th grade. So like 12, maybe?
Yeah, that's exactly when I started playing guitar. That's that time. And it's what we were talking about, which was when you brought up your 3 albums. Those 3 albums are, 2 of them are 1980 and one's 1981. At least that's what it says online. Sometimes I found that a lot of these references, it's like you'll go to the streaming service and it'll say it released this time, and then you'll look on the internet and it says it released this time, but it says it around 1980, 81, and that seems to be that integral part of adolescence, emerging out of childhood and into those teen years where you really are introduced to these unbelievable sounds. That's when I got a guitar. That's when you started playing drums. And that's when these albums kind of, these are, especially AC/DC, those are some anthemic, drums, like just, is that what it was that you were like, I want to play like that?
I definitely never listened to AC/DC and was like, I want to play like that. That's not to say that it's not incredible, and like Phil Rudd isn't just like holding it down on the floor.
Yeah, it is 4 on the floor. I was gonna say you're so much more complex, to your style.
We always referred to that as like a sandwich eating, drumming gig, where you're just like eating a sandwich while you're playing it. Once again, for a bunch of nerdy teenagers who are like, that's not cool to just hold it down,
Right.
This is that guy doing more.
Not cool to hold it down and eat a sandwich. I love that. Yeah.
Now I'm like, give me some more sandwich eating.
Yeah. What about April Wine? Was that a good drummer? Was that a good?
Listen, of the 3, let's just go with Neil Peart.
Let's just stick with Neil Peart on this one.
Yeah.
All right. So before I get you out of here, you're also a source of, Tim and I have hung out twice in real life. We do text each other and talk about live shows. And I often kind of lean on you a little bit, as you've been a really great source of, Royal Blood's popular, but you sent me another band recently that we were going to go see live. And I was like, this kicks ass. The name escapes me right now, but it was
The Bad Nerves?
No, not Bad Nerves. It was the other one. I'm drawing a blank on it. But you sent me a thing, and I listened to the track, and I was like, "This is so good." And you seem to be one of these people that really has his ear to the ground, and especially the bands that are coming through right now. I wanted to know who else is kind of, I don't know, getting you excited about music right now that you're enjoying.
Well, it's funny. I'm in this huge rabbit hole of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard right now.
Yes.
And the things that seem to scare most people off about that band, where they're just like, they can't pigeonhole them, and they're like, well, what are they and what do they do? And for me, that's the upside to streaming. And, like, obviously streaming is not great for bands or artists. Mm-hmm. I try and do my part by, if I hear a band, I'll go buy the record at least. But what it's really good for is just kind of researching things. I could go back and I've listened to their whole catalog chronologically and was like, oh, okay, interesting. This is where they're going, but they're really cool. Obviously I think they put out 25 albums in the last decade or something.
It's unbelievable. I'm glad you brought them up, because they're a band that people often recommend to me. And I've had to watch YouTube videos that are like, here's breaking down the last 20 albums because you really don't know where to start on that band because there's so much, and then you listen to one and it's kind of like a metal, like an 80s metal album, and you listen to this one and it's like instrumental and very rhythmic, and then you listen to this one and it's like kind of, it's all over the map. And so because they are so prolific and they do so many styles, it's hard to hold on to what King Gizzard the Lizard Wizard is. And so I think they're amazing.
I think they intentionally are like, there is nothing that we is.
Yeah, right.
We just do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
Which is intriguing to me, specifically from a live standpoint, because the two records that I like the most by them are Butterfly 3000, which is like their electronic pop record, I guess would be the best thing I could say. And then there's another one called Petrodragonic Apocalypse.
Yes, it's the one with the lizard on the front. Yeah, yes. I've listened to that one. Very metal.
Very metal.
Yeah.
So even just taking those two, like I can't imagine a band playing a song from one of or both of those albums in a live set,
Right,
but
right.
They probably do, but
they probably do. They probably jump all over the place. I remember the band that it was Teen Mortgage.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're great.
So you sent me a text. You were like, I'm getting tickets to Teen Mortgage, and we weren't able to go. But I listened to it, and I was like, this is great. So it's another one of those bands that I wasn't familiar with. And I was like, well, Tim knows what's up. Tim knows what's happening.
Always. I always put them.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to say, so one of my favorite bands that I've discovered in probably the past, decade is Tiger Cub, which, you've seen them.
Incredible.
So good. But
so good.
That's 100% the algorithm.
Yeah.
Spotify did that.
They showed you Tiger Cub.
Yeah. I remember early on when Pandora first came out and, it was the algorithm and you could, you're like, oh, I'm going to type in all the bands I love and it's going to be perfect. Everything's just going to be gold from here on out. And I remember specifically getting to a point where I would try and guess how long it would take to get to Death Cab for Cutie because, at that point, the algorithm was very young.
Yeah, baby algorithms.
Yeah, and I'm not, I like Death Cab for Cutie. They have some good songs. Yeah, I don't dislike them at all. I love Postal Service. But I think that the algorithms have started to get better and better over time. And Tiger Cub just popped up once and I was like, oh my God, this band sounds like all of my favorite things about like different bands, like some Queens of the Stone Age in there. There's all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of Nirvana with them. So
yeah. And you and I, that's the first time we hung out. The first time we met in person was seeing them at that show. And that lead singer who's 7 feet tall, which is just one of the most shocking things about, they're this incredible band. And then you see him in person and you're like, you just rarely see a human that large in a rock band, let alone life.
It doesn't happen very often. 9 times out of 10 musicians are smaller than you imagine.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely like skyscraper.
Yeah. Skyscraper human. But anyway,
nice. All those guys are super cool.
Yeah, yeah. They put on a hell of a show, and I'm so glad that I saw them play that night and got turned on to their music. They made like my top albums of last year. But yeah, man. So this has been just absolutely a blast, just shooting the shit with you and talking about your Dazed and Confused classic rock, Kansas City. Let's go out in the back of the high school, smoke some cigarettes, man. Those albums, and then just hearing a little bit about your time in Shiner and all these projects and You're the Rabbit and so many cool bands that I highly recommend. I encourage my audience to go follow those links to hear Tim's drumming and definitely look at some of those reissues if you've never gotten a chance to spend a lot of time with Shiner and hear his super complex drumming.
I don't know about complex, but it's busy.
It's good. It's good, man. It sounds good to me.
There's some business going on there.
There's some business. But right now, currently, he's looking for a sandwich drum gig. Provide the kit and sandwich for him, please.
Basically, just a kick, snare, and hi-hats, and a sandwich.
Deal. Okay, I'm gonna start putting the feelers out there to get that set up.
All right.
But thank you, Tim. Let's hang out again soon, man. Let's go see some shows. And thanks for coming on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And before I go, I just want to, throw it right back to you. I've always been, just a lover of music. I love talking about music. I love just perusing and seeing all the different vinyl things. And I think that's one thing that's kind of been the coolest about, the emergence of the internet and, with podcasts and people, sharing their passions with other people, even reaction videos. In the past couple of years, I've really gotten into reaction videos where it's just cool to see like, oh, like there are things that are good in the world.
Yes,
like
yes.
people like, oh, I love, Mississippi Queen, My Mountain. I'm going to watch some guy like freak out first time he's ever heard it, or,
Right.
So, but your channel, I love it, man. I love all your content. So it's been a real pleasure to be on there.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that a lot, man. I'm glad it brought us together and made us friends, and we've gotten to hang out. We'll hang out many more times.
I wouldn't say we're friends. I mean, let's not get carried away.
All right, let's not. Okay, really pushing it, Jacob. Well, we'll go to our the Creed reunion show and go see Broasis, and it'll be a blast.
All right.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, brother.
Such a great conversation with Tim. Always love hanging out with him and looking forward to the next few shows we're going to go check out. And for some reason, I've got a hankering for listening to Creed right now. But it was a great conversation. So thank you again to him. Make sure you check all the links that I include in the description in of the episode. There'll be some links that you can check out all the projects and things that Tim has been drumming on. But it was so great to have him on the show. And again, I want to thank Pantheon Podcasts who have included me in on their network. Pantheon Podcasts are the masters of music in the podcast realm. They are dominating. All of their shows cover pretty much every genre you could possibly imagine. And when you go to their page and you see all the podcasts that they have, so many of those are in the top, including mine. We're not doing too bad, but hey, we could always do better. So thank you, Pantheon Podcast. I'm grateful to be a part of your network. And if you like my stuff, you should definitely check out some of the other shows that they have that cover different music genres and bands. But of course, we all know Waterproof Records is the number one. At least you make me number one in my heart. Again, check out distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. You get that 30% off your first year. And thank you, as always, for coming to me here and listening to Waterproof Records with me, your host, Jacob Givens. I love making this show for you. I'm grateful that I get to make this show for you, and hopefully we can make it for many more years to come. So thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.
Things are going to change. I can feel it.
If this gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna